here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, that's enough.
Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com.
Hey, look, we're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Excited to get rolling. Big show on tap. We've got lineup changes to make. We're also going to give away that John Henderson autograph helmet, thanks to our friend at Sports Treasures. So there is a lot going on. Caleb Calhoun, and I ask you, the man who's been battling the cold lately, how are you, sir?
I am good. I have been battling the cold, but I haven't been battling a flu or a separated shoulder. So I have much more sympathy for you right now.
So for funsies, lay out the poll question, and I have to turn one studio light on. So go ahead and lay out the poll question and talk to our peeps. Like and subscribe as I turn my lighting on.
What is worse, a dislocated shoulder or the flu? Or both? What's worse, those two or both?
Well, I'll go ahead and tell you that both ain't good, but I will say this. It's a tough call, but the shoulder's good now. I feel confident. I think I could go throw up about 225 today. What do you think? 2 plates on each side?
Oh, really? You think you could?
I think my shoulder would be completely out of joint. Coming up on the program today, we certainly appreciate you being a part of it. We are going to visit with Tony Jones, former Tennessee assistant coach coaching at locally, and we'll visit with him to get his thoughts on the basketball Vols. The insight he provides is incredible. Longtime assistant with Bruce Pearl, so we'll be able to talk some hoops with him each and every Friday. Lady Vols beat Mississippi State. Also, will Peyton Lewis be better than Dylan Sampson? I feel strongly about this one. We'll get into it. Now, something crazy that's about to happen is this Title IX is going to apply to school payments to players. That is scary because if you start to take away player money, financial support from revenue sports for non-revenue sports, and I'm sorry, but the Lady Vols don't make money, and neither does any women's team in Tennessee's athletic department or probably across the nation. It just doesn't. We'll discuss that because I think it's going to be a little goofy. Stat of the day as well. And Mike Eckler or Willie Martinez, should they be retained or should they be bounced? We'll ask that question later on in the program. So exciting. Will West of the Sports Animal will join us. That's always fun too. Let's get to it right now. It is today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, your trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, so when James Pearce was considered a #1 pick overall in the NFL draft, I think we all thought that he's going to bolt. I mean, guys don't turn down being the #1 pick in the NFL draft very often. I mean, Peyton Manning did, but that's not going to be the case for the most part. So with James Pearce, they lose a guy that's an elite edge rusher, supposedly, according to NFL scouts that I have talked to. He didn't have the impact on the field that I thought that he would. So let me ask you this. As far as James Pearce, let me ask you, how replaceable is he? Can the Vols replace James Pearce?
I think James Pearce is very replaceable. And I say that because I think James Pearce, as good as he is, I said this yesterday and I thought about it and I'm doubling down. I think Rodney Garner is turning Tennessee into edge rusher U in a similar, I said that. In a similar way that Lincoln Riley had turned Oklahoma into quarterback U a few years ago. John Calipari turned Kentucky into one and done U, number one draft pick U, like year in and year out. I think Rodney Garner's turning Tennessee into that. So let's back up for a minute. What happened? Josh Heupel takes over in 2021. Rodney Garner comes in. Byron Young, a junior college transfer, comes out of nowhere and becomes the best edge rusher in the SEC 2 years in a row.
He was a general manager at what was it? What's that little store that they have? Anyway, I can't remember the name of it, but he was a general manager at like a little thrift store type thing. But go ahead.
Yeah, now he's about to get a major NFL contract. There's going to be a movie on him one day, honestly, with that story. So that happens with Byron Young. He's gone. James Pearce comes in. Looks like a generational edge rusher. They start doubling James Pearce this year. Joshua Joseph starts to make an impact. Also, Tennessee got, from a raw talent perspective, the most physically gifted player at the edge rusher spot on the recruiting trail last year in Jordan Ross, who, yes, did cost the Vols a game with his roughing the punter penalty against Arkansas. I am very aware of that. But overall, I got to be honest, he is the best of all of them from a pure physical perspective. So I think Tennessee will have no problem replacing James Pearce. I think Joshua Josephs, David Hobbs are bodies, and I think Jordan Ross is the rare talent that will be the most irreplaceable edge rusher Tennessee's ever had.
Okay. Now, I think you're projecting a little bit, and we both do this. Please, if you don't mind, hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed to this point, do that. We had a poll question up earlier that is, what is worse, a shoulder dislocation or the flu? It was overwhelmingly flu. We now have a new poll question up concerning James Pearce. So let's go ahead and set that up. It's on there, and I'm gonna tell Caleb why I think that he's off base here. But what's our poll question on the YouTuber?
Can the Vols replace James Pearce? Yes, no, maybe.
Okay, yes. Is doing a pretty good job, and that stuns me. Hang tight. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones.
Okay, here's the deal. I think two things are pitfalls in your argument. One, Jordan Ross, we haven't seen him hit any sort of level that would make me think he's elite. I look at him as a specimen in the eye test that can burn us so bad. I think that we've gotten excited about Jordan Ross, but at the end of the day, Jordan Ross may be as talented as James Pearce. He may even be more talented. He's a little bit bigger. But if they start dropping Jordan Ross into pass coverage, I don't, for 50% of the plays, like it seemed like with James Pearce, I don't know that Tennessee is going to be any better or worse. I think they're just hamstrung. Now, maybe they learned a lesson and they're going to have Ross come around the edge more often as opposed to dropping into pass coverage. But, man, they really mishandled that. And I've got to see what they do in response to that before I'm willing to go all in that Ross is going to be as good or better than Pearce. Physically, when I look at them, I'm on board with you. I also think that James Pearce is going to go in the first round, so I'll play the numbers game. Chances are that players won't go in the first round, right? So I'll play the numbers game with you a little bit. So I disagree, but it's not because of anything that Jordan Ross has done or will do. It's because I'm not sure Tennessee knows how to use an elite edge rusher. And until they show me different, that's where I stand.
Okay, let's think about it from this perspective. And here's an interesting exercise. So we talked at length about how Leonard Little was idiotically put at middle linebacker in 1997. Made no sense his senior year. He was a situational edge rusher. And as a situational edge rusher, I still think he had like 8 sacks or something. It was insane how well he played. He was an All-American that year. Should have been an All-American in 95, though. 97, it was a Lifetime Achievement Award for him to be an All-American. What happens in 98? Leonard Little's gone. Tennessee sticks Sean Ellison at defensive end. Sean Ellis is a little bit bigger, so they realize they can't move him around at middle linebacker. So they're forced to fully commit him to end. And Sean Ellis in 98 is probably more productive than Leonard Little was in 97. And I'm thinking this year with Jordan Ross, I think because Jordan Ross is bigger, and significantly so, I think they'll have a harder time actually dropping him back in coverage. So I think they'll kind of be forced to play Jordan Ross up on the line more. So it's kind of one of those situations where they'll be forced to use him properly, which I'm sure you've seen coaches have to do in the past, where they're forced to use a player properly. And you're like, thank God they don't have the option to make the mistake that they sometimes make.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so I think they'll be forced to play Jordan. See, they thought James Pearce, they could disguise coverages and things like that because he's so athletic. It's not like he can't drop back in coverage and make plays. You're just wasting what he could do up front. I think Jordan Ross, I don't think they can do that. I don't think Jordan Ross can do that, which means he's just going to be an edge rusher, which makes you much more excited if you're a Tennessee fan because he's going to stay on the line. Okay,
do me a favor. I'm going to look up Jordan Ross's size. Go ahead and look up James Pearce's size because Ross appears to me to be a bigger, maybe more athletic guy. 6'5", 245 pounds. How big was Pearce last year? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I said let me pull it up. I thought you were looking up Jordan Ross's size, and I thought you were looking up James Pearce's size. Pearce was listed as 6'5", 243. I'm not buying it though. I've seen them next to each other. Ross looks a lot bigger.
He does, and a lot of those numbers are made up. And listen, you're not going to create a potential problem if James Pearce comes to you and says, "I want to be listed at 245, even though I'm 228." I agree. Ross looks a lot bigger. Who else might be on this team that could be a pass rusher specifically from the edge? Do you have a feel for that? Because it would be nice for Tennessee to have two. I felt like not only did the Vols waste James Pearce on rushing him against the passer, but I felt like they kind of wasted him in that they opened up more opportunities on the other side because he got extra attention. Yet I don't think they had a player that was absolutely good to go in terms of being ready. And that's Tennessee's fault. But I don't know that they have a second high-level elite rusher. What say you?
Okay, so, and for what it's worth, Jordan Ross was 245 coming in. James Pearce was 220 coming in. So that means Jordan Ross could get up.
They're not the same size. I mean, those rosters are just goofy.
Yeah, so I'm very high on, obviously, like I told you, Jordan. We know what Joshua Joseph can do. We saw him be very effective last year. On the, kind of the bigger Tyree West style edge rusher on the other side. You talk Tyree West himself. David Hobbs is on that side. Tyree Weathersby could play that role. I believe in all of them in a rotational situation. I don't know if Dominic Bailey can come back. I don't think he can, but also don't sleep, Dave, on Emmanuel Okoye as another edge rusher. Remember, Emmanuel Okoye switched positions to edge rusher. He had to spend a year learning the system, but I think they are high on his raw athletic ability from what I've heard. And so if he actually picks up the fundamentals, let's be honest, you could tell me there's not that much coaching with playing edge rusher, right?
Well, there was last year with Pearce because he had to.
No, I mean, there's not that much development in learning how to be an edge rusher off the edge and learning how to rush the quarterback.
If that's all you do, if you're James Pearce and you're dropping into coverage as often as he did last year, then you're talking about something completely different, Caleb, because at that point you've got a guy that's probably overthinking things. So I don't think it's hard to teach a guy to rip and roar. I go back to something that Jeremy Pruitt said, and I know he's not the brightest bulb in the lighting shop, but he said, I don't care if they put one hand down, if they put no hands down. It's just that body lean to get around the edge. So I think that's significant in that Tennessee will make things easier for Jordan Ross if they're smart about it. If you have an elite pass rusher, he should be able just to attack the quarterback. It's the second most important position in sports. It changed the game, and Tennessee did not get what I expected that they would out of James Pearce.
You think it's the second most important position?
I do. Do you not?
An edge. I never thought. See, my thing with edge rushers is, I mean, I guess you're right. They do kind of change the game.
I mean, that's basically what Blindsided was all about. Is that movie is the fact that, and I know you've got ties in that area, but it was the fact that when Lawrence Taylor broke Joe Theismann's leg, and back then an injury like that and you're done. They actually cleaned his stuff out and put it in a box. At that point, edge rushers became a huge priority. The next priority was an offensive tackle to stop the edge rusher. So no, I mean, to me, the most important position on the field is quarterback, followed by edge rusher, defensive end, whatever you want to call it, and then offensive tackle. Those are pretty much the three that are on a separate tier. Then after that, I think, yeah, I mean, they don't have as much of an impact on the game. I'm surprised you may not agree with that. You?
No, I'm not agreeing with it. I was just kind of pondering it for a minute. But I get your point overall. You're right. Edge rushers are crucial. I still wonder if, I'm starting to wonder if with the times they dropped James Pearce back in coverage, maybe they were lower on and one of the reasons I bring this up, maybe they were lower on their safeties than we thought. I mean, part of taking away the quick slants in the middle of the field, Dave, and you know this, is making sure the nickel and the safeties are in the right positions. Well, Jordan Thomas went down with a season-ending injury at the beginning of this year. I think they were high on him. They didn't get to use him. But then on top of that, Boo Carter was raw, and as good as he was playing out of position a lot. He was just so athletic he could recover at nickel. But I think because he was raw, and I think because Jordan Thomas was hurt, I think they had to rely on Pearce to drop back in coverage some to take away those passes over the middle of the field more than they wanted to have to rely on that.
Yep.
And I don't think they have to rely on that next year. I think the safeties and nickel should be better next year, but I'm not sure.
Hit like and subscribe. Be sure you have your notifications turned on. Caleb's been sick for a number of weeks. I'm playing hurt now with the flu, but I feel pretty good.
Don't you love January?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get an update on the poll question brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. So give us an update on the poll question right now.
Can the Vols replace James Pearce? Yes, no, maybe. Do you want the results now?
Yep, I do.
73% agree with me and say yes. And 10% say no, 17% say maybe.
Yeah, I think it really just depends on how they use him. I think it's as simple as that. Let's get to, what are we doing? This day in Tennessee sports history. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do this day in Tennessee sports history.
Brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry at Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com. What do you got, bud?
On this day, 27 years ago in 1998, Tennessee basketball beat Ole Miss 77-67. That game was significant because it was the first ranked win of the Jerry Green era at Tennessee.
Wow.
And that 97-98 team did make the NCAA tournament. They were bounced out in the first round. But, Dave, I wasn't close to following Tennessee basketball at all during that time. You tell me, as low as people are looking back on Jerry Green, were they really high on him after that first year when they made the NCAA tournament and then were top 10 preseason the next year?
Yeah, I thought they were. They were high on him because of the talent that was brought in either by previous staff or him. And that's one of the first times and maybe only times they had the Midnight Madness, that first time you can practice. And I remember going to that, and you talk about a foreshadowing of things to come. Tony Harris on a dunk came down and injured his heel. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's not.
Was that when he was a freshman?
Oh, yeah, true freshman. Yeah. And by the way, yesterday, they got all over me. I said that Wayne Chisholm had blood clots. I totally misspoke. It was Charles Hathaway.
Yeah, that's right. Charles Hathaway was back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My bad. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. What were you? And I'm curious, is Jerry Green's tenure at Tennessee should that be considered a success?
I mean, like, I think we always forget he had 4 20-plus win seasons, 4 NCAA tournament appearances, won an SEC title, reached the Sweet 16. Before Bruce Pearl, that's by far the most successful 4-year tenure in Tennessee basketball history, funny enough.
Can I be honest with you? I think, and man, I hope he's not watching because I don't want to sound like that guy, but I think he's the worst coach to have success that has been at Tennessee in my 25 years of covering them. And I don't think it's close. I just think that, and I remember right before the SEC tournament, maybe he wanted to throw it like you suggest they do. I remember one time he came out and he just kind of threw the ball in the middle of the court and he goes, well, we're just going to have a 2-hour scrimmage. Go play. And I remember Mike I mean, you're getting ready for something. Maybe if it's not the SEC tournament because you don't care, that's fine. But you need to get your team better. Instead, he thought it was just a good time for recess, which was strange. And I still remember, speaking of strange, Mike Strange sitting behind me and going, and Mike has a deeper voice than me, going, what the hell is this? And Jerry Green walked off the court, Caleb, and they just played basketball. There was no practice. There was no instruction. There was no anything. And this was March. I mean, that's obscene.
That is kind of crazy. There's also this, I think what happened, I think he came at Tennessee at a good time with not just inheriting Kevin O'Neal recruits. I think we forget this. Jerry Green landed a stellar class himself when he had the class with Ron Slay and Marcus Hayslip. And he also got Vincent Yarbrough. Here's the thing. All of those were in-state Tennessee kids, though. So I don't know how much recruiting he did. Like, we've had Ron on the past, and he basically was like, yeah, I wasn't really looking anywhere else. I wanted to go to Tennessee the whole time. And
well, they didn't show him as much love as the football players that he was in school with, like John Henderson, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the football players got shown a lot of love. He got very little, and he said, yo, this isn't going to work.
But it was also evidence of how bad of a coach Buzz Peterson was. If Buzz Peterson had the same talent that first year at the very least and went 15-16 and then just consistently got worse.
Do you still wonder out loud if Buzz and Michael Jordan were really best friends? Because wouldn't Michael Jordan show up every once in a while and help his best friend out?
No, Buzz is one of the people Michael Jordan took things personally about. He mentioned Buzz in his Hall of Fame speech because he didn't like Buzz Peterson. Apparently thought Michael Jordan wasn't good enough to play at North Carolina when Michael Jordan first signed and Buzz Peterson was there. And Michael Jordan took that very personally. So no, Buzz is name dropping him now, like 30 years later. But I mean, like, look, I mean, I'm sorry. Can we say this, Dave? Is Buzz the classic case of like a jock hired to coach a team?
He's the classic case of a football guy, Doug Dickey, hired a basketball coach. There's been a lot of bad basketball hires in the SEC over the years. That's not the only one. And that was primarily because you got to an athletic department position by going through the coaching ranks like Dickey did. Now, that's not the case. I don't think Danny White could long snap a football, much less throw it downfield more than about 25 yards. But you don't care. You want a CEO type. And that's what they were shooting for. Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. Go to facebook.com and look for Sports Treasures TN. The link is right below. Sports Treasures TN. We can't leave this topic on the docket without mentioning that Jerry Green, there's no question that he was a better coach than what he showed at Tennessee. He thought it was a golden parachute. Do you know what that term means?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, okay, so it's his last opportunity to make a big payday. He got the golden parachute, and he just he did not want to be a coach anymore. I think I told you before, I saw him sneaking off to play golf during the middle of practice. Chris Lowe was there. He could verify that of ESPN. He would get hammered before he would go on ball calls to the point that they didn't want him out and about when they do ball calls remotely. So he would just sound drunk on the phone. And he called out Tennessee's fans, said, go get a movie at Kmart, which is odd because they don't rent movies at Kmart. But you have to say, if you want to bring it all together, like Josh Heupel has a positive public image. Jerry Green did not. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to say who it is, but he was much more accomplished than Jerry Green. An SEC coach came up to me, and I asked him, I said, so what do you think are your chances? And he said, well, you've always got a chance when the silver fox is on the sidelines with his arms crossed.
Oh, that's really funny. You know, it's funny because I do remember, like I said, I wasn't following the program during that time, but I do remember it felt like there was never excitement about Tennessee being a top 10 program year in and year out during that period. And I'm like, how are Tennessee fans not excited? In my mind, I'm like, oh, they're just not a basketball school. But then Bruce Pearl gets there, and they're wildly excited about being a top 10 program. So it's just kind of like they treated being top 10 in basketball during that time like they treated being top 10 in football. Like, oh, we're supposed to be in. And it's like, but you're not supposed to be in. Shouldn't you be happier? And it's like it felt like they weren't.
Yep, I agree. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Certainly appreciate them the best when it comes to selection and customer service, and it's not close. I'll tell you more about that a little bit later in the program. Quick 2-minute break. Then we get Tony Jones, former Tennessee assistant coach, still coaching and provides some analysis that you just can't get anywhere else. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. Also, before the end of the program, we're going to give away the John Henderson autographed helmet, and we're going to change the way we give that away moving forward. But those that are members of the Patreon page, which is about to go the way of, I don't know, malaria, whatever that is. I guess some people, what's gone away? Beta.
Polio?
How about beta? Polio. It's gone away. So the Patreon page is going to go away. So we want to provide you with all the recruiting information that we get absolutely free. We're advertising based, and I rethought that. And all you'll have to do is be a member of the channel, which is just $5, and then we'll draw for those prizes. I also have a gift certificate to Hound Dogs that I'll be giving away later in the program today. So if you do want to go ahead and join the YouTube site, then just go ahead and say, I want to join. It's easy to do. Caleb can explain it because he's younger than me and smarter than me with tech stuff. But we'll get to Tony Jones right after this. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
And here we go.
This was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Very excited to get this guy on, so let's go ahead and do it. We played an awful lot of phone tag, probably more my fault than his. But Tony Jones joins us now, former Tennessee coach and continuing to coach as well. Tony, thank you for joining us, sir. How are you? Oh, we lost Tony. We'll get Tony back. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Let's see if we can get Tony back. There he is. Tony, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Dave. How you guys doing today?
Never better. All right, let me just start. I like to start with the big open-ended questions and then kind of drill down on some specific things. So let me ask you, what are your thoughts on this basketball team, Tennessee's basketball team, after you've seen them a pretty good bit? I guess we're roughly almost midway through the season. What do you think of this team?
Very good basketball team. I think Final Four worthy. What they do so well, Dave, is they play defense, holding opponents to around 35% from the field and 24% from three. And those things travel. I mean, and the SEC is a gauntlet this year. I mean, each and every game is a dogfight. And if you go in with a mindset where you're going to defend, you have opportunity to win.
Tony, you talk about how those things travel, and I agree with you. What about from the other side, though? There was the Florida game, I guess 2 Tuesdays ago, where Tennessee, laid an egg with 43 points. Is there a concern that when Tennessee's not shooting the ball well, that they can't manufacture points in certain ways?
Well, I mean, Mama said there'd be days like this. That's what Mama said, and you're gonna have a game like that at Florida. Hey, I've been in that venue 8 times. I played in the Swamp 8 times. It's a very difficult place to play, especially when you're playing against dudes, and Florida has dudes, and.
Oh, we're getting a slight breakup with Tony. We'll get Tony back. It is a tough place to play. The O-Dome is a factor. How many points do you think the O-Dome's worth? I don't think it's a stretch to say 6 to 8 points.
No, I don't either. I never condemned Tennessee for losing that game. I condemned them for scoring 43 points in that game.
Gotcha. Let's see if we get Tony back. Tony, we're struggling with Tony a little bit. Tony's back. All right, buddy. So you're talking about playing in difficult venues. Have there been times in your career that you said, this one's not our night? And you wouldn't do this with an NCAA tournament elimination game, but do you ever say, this one's not our night, let's get some guys some rest and just think about the next game?
Well, as a coach and as a competitor, you never think you're out of games.
Right.
Maybe that Florida game, was well out of hand, and maybe you think about that. But I know the mindset and the philosophy of that coaching staff at the University of Tennessee. They always think that they can get back in the game. Hey, maybe Chaz can knock down 2 or 3 threes in a row, and ZZ can throw alley-oop to Felix, and then bam, the momentum has changed. But in that particular case, it didn't happen.
Your thoughts on Zakai Ziegler? Last game he played, to me, was his best game, and I don't care if we're talking about points or assists or all that stuff. I just thought very positive, very aggressive. He's, I think, one of the better guards in the nation. But I felt like he took another step in Tennessee's last game. Your thoughts on his play to this point?
Well, I do a show with him on Sundays, and I told him I thought the Texas game was a really, really stellar game for him. I think he single-handedly won that game by doing some curly Neal stuff, dribbling baseline and spinning, and when he found Gainey for the three, that was a huge play. Obviously, against Georgia, their last game, he scored 16 points, had 7 assists. He's leading the SEC in assists and top 5 in the nation in assists. He's the straw that stirs the drink, and he's playing really, really well. And he is no wonder he's a Naismith 25 Naismith Player of the Year candidate. He's playing extremely well, and I even told him, I said, if Tyler Eulis and Jared Harper and those type of guys can play in the NBA, you sure can.
All right, Caleb, I know you want to jump in here. The UPS store, Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated by Vols fans. The link is right down below. Promotional materials that your business has to have. Caleb?
Tony, it's funny you talk about Zakai, and before last game, I kept thinking in my mind, man, Zakai would have thrived in Bruce Pearl and Tony Jones up tempo system when they first got to Tennessee, and then Tennessee basically pressed the entire second half. It felt like against Georgia. Do you see elements of Tennessee running right now, which you guys ran when y'all first got to Tennessee in 2005?
We called it 55-30 organized chaos, and to get back in that, actually, Georgia was just up by a field goal or a point at halftime, but obviously the capable staff of Rick Barnes, they said, hey, let's make this adjustment, and they got after Georgia, and they outscored them by 19 points in the second half. Obviously, to press on a consistent basis, you have to have depth. And you have to be committed to playing the depth. And for the last few games, D Stone has played well. Obviously, Gainey is a sixth starter. I mean, you start 5, but he's a 6th starter the way he's been playing. And then the big fella. What is his name? Is escaping me right now. Cade Phillips. Cade Phillips has just been playing really, really well all year. So basically now you got a solid 8-man rotation, and maybe in instances in games that you can put some pressure on some guys full court.
Here's what I'd like to do. I would just like to throw some names at you, and you tell me what you think about their play, the good and the bad, and just give me what you think halfway through the season or so. So I will start with Chaz Lanier. It seems to me he's more of a spot-up shooter. I don't know that he has the drive to the basket ability that Dalton Connect has, but you tell me, 'cause you're the basketball guru.
You know what? He's had a really, really solid year. The last 3 games hasn't been really stellar. He struggled with his shot. If I'm an opposing coach, I'm going to play him sticky. I'm going to play him huggy. I'm going to run him off the 3-point line. I'm going to make him make tough twos. And if he's able to make tough twos, congratulations. But he's struggling with his shot right now. He needs to find it. He's the guy that if Tennessee is going to make a serious run, he's going to
I think we're losing Tony a little bit. We'll get him back on. And the next guy I'm going to ask him about is Darling Stone Dubar. What are your thoughts on Dubar, Caleb, and what he's done at this point this year?
I think that he should.
Do we have Tony back? Is Tony there? We'll get Tony back. All right, go ahead. Caleb, your thoughts on him to this point?
Darling Stone, I've been high on Darling Stone from the start. I mean, I thought he was going to replace Dalton Connect. I was a little wrong on that. He hasn't picked up the defense as well, but he's a very versatile scorer when he's in the game, and I think he just needs to play more to get more in a rhythm. I think that's the big thing with Darling Stone right now. This is just somewhat get more in a rhythm more than anything else.
All right, we got there he is. Tony Jones back. All right, next guy I want you to break down for me. Give me your thoughts. Darling Stone Dubar.
Darling Stone is he's a wild card. I mean, as you see the game against Texas, he came and had I believe he had 12 points, 4-6 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3. He got 6 big rebounds. If you gonna get a consistent contribution from D Stone like that, then you got a chance to do some positive things. Some of the things that basketball team wants to do. He's a guy that can play over the rim. I was talking to him last Sunday, and somebody asked me to compare him with a player that maybe played professionally or collegially. And I said, easy Ryder, J.R. Ryder. He got some of J.R. Ryder in him. That dunk he got against Texas, that putback slam was very impressive.
Hey, let me ask you a question real quick, because I had a debate with this about somebody else. A three-pointer is a three-pointer. It's more points than a fantastic dunk, but a dunk can ignite a team. So which would you rather have with the game on the line?
A three-pointer. Come on, you're talking to a coach right now.
More points.
I want the points. Yeah. Hey, that's why. Hey, Hook. That's why I have a problem in football when these coaches lead the points, off the board. Instead of taking a field goal, they trying to go for it on 4th and 2. I'll take the points.
Yeah, Caleb says go for it all the time. Caleb,
we wouldn't. Tony, if I was a football coach, I just wouldn't even have a punter. Looking at this now, you're right. You talked about the depth, and you have to have depth to press. So Tennessee right now only has 9 scholarship guys. Is there a concern that they can't play the tempo they may want to play throughout the year because they'll be too tired by March if they do that, because they only have 9 scholarship guys?
Well, you know what? If you disperse those minutes equally, and you got D Stone playing 17, 18 minutes, you got Gainey who's going to get his 25 minutes a game, and then Cade, if you can get him up to 18 minutes a game, then you can start dispersing those minutes and not logging a lot of minutes on those starters. Who knows? If Bishop is going to be a part of that rotation, but I think the coaching staff would like it as it pertains to numbers for him to be able to press.
Tony's appearance brought to you in part by our friends Peak IV Hydration. You can order the patch online. Please drop that in the chat box, Caleb, because whether it's energy or whether it's recovery, I'm actually going to get one today. Because I'm battling a bit of the flu, but I'm going to take this thing down. In South Knoxville and Sevierville, live life to your fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. And they've got the patch, so you don't have to be in Knoxville to take advantage of this. I'm super stoked to get mine. The other player I wanted just to get your evaluation on was Igor. Your thoughts on Milicic?
He's a guy that was thought to be a 3-point shooter. When he was at Charlotte. What I've been really impressed with Igor is his ability to rebound. I mean, especially on the defensive end. 18 rebounds in a recent game. He's just been a yeoman on the boards. If he's able to, be that stretch 4 that they need to be able to knock down the 3 off of rotation or inside out, then I think, he could be a little bit more productive. But I'm really pleased with his contribution thus far during the year.
Tony, I know you're from Detroit, so I'm guessing you were a big fan of the Bad Boy Pistons since you were coaching high school there during that run.
I love them. I love Isaiah Thomas.
Bunch of punks.
Do you think
I got nothing for them.
Do you think Bill Laimbeer and Larry Bird will ever settle their beef? And if they get into a fight, who wins?
Never. They'll never settle their beef. And Hook, you must have been a Johnny Most fan. You must have been a Johnny Most fan. I got a great imitation of Johnny Most. I got a great imitation of Johnny Most. You want to hear it?
I do want to hear it.
You want to hear it?
Yeah.
Hey, people ask me, Johnny, why don't you like Isaiah Thomas? I tell them, why should I like him?
That was the play-by-play announcer for the Celtics. That was pretty darn awesome right there. I'm impressed. Maybe we'll do a Johnny Most segment. We'll get it sponsored at some point. The Vols moving forward. If Rick Barnes called and said, "Hey, Tony, I need to talk to you for a second. What should we tweak? What would you tweak moving forward before we get into clutch time?"
You know what? I think what they need to do is, like Caleb said, what about on those off nights when they're not shooting the ball well? Let's slow it down. Let's make sure we get good shots, high percentage shots, and the only way we're gonna do that is to practice. Keep those guys in the gym before practice and after practice, getting shots up. And that's the only way, in my estimation, that Tennessee's not going to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament or contend for the SEC championship, is they don't shoot the ball well in a tournament game. Because, like I said, defense travels, and they're going to get into people, they're going to defend. But if one of those nights like Florida occurs during the SEC tournament or during the NCAA tournament, it could be good night, Irene.
You did, Johnny, a Most impression. Do you want me to do a Jerry Green impression?
Yeah, do a Jerry Green impression, please.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we won 20 games. If you don't like it, you can just go to Kmart and rent a movie. That actually happened.
Hey, that's all. When we got on the hill, that's all we heard is that comment by Coach
Really?
Green. Obviously, a very hey, he had a good run. He had a good run at Tennessee, but he made some questionable statements that didn't endear him to the fan base.
But got him a big fat payout. Tell everybody what you're doing nowadays.
Well, right now I am I'm working for Knox County Schools. I'm in special education. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. Coach at Johnson University. Used to be called Johnson College, and we are win a championship in the NAIA division. We facility got to get you out there to come see us play. We play a lot like we did at Tennessee, and it's an exciting brand of basketball.
All right, buddy. I appreciate you more than you know. I'll see you at church before too long. Have a blessed day.
Have a blessed day. Thanks, guys, for having
me. Tony.
That's a great dude. And I'm telling you, I think he is one of the most intelligent coaches I've ever been around, because he could call up a dozen Division I schools. There's no doubt in my mind. And with his recruiting ability and his X's and O's, get a job somewhere else. But I talked to him yesterday. He just loves being in Knoxville, which I think is pretty awesome. So we're excited to have him on the program. Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. Right down below, qualitytirepros.com, qualitytirepros.com. Tell Bo that Dave Hooker and Off the Hook Sports said, "Hey, Bo, how are you, sir?" All right. I want to switch gears a little bit. If we can get to, how about changing gears to, we want to get this day in Tennessee sports history, but let's get to the Lady Vols beating Mississippi State, and we'll get Caleb's thoughts on that as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. I'm looking for a Bronco, and I'm so excited. I'm just kind of waiting, and I'm kind of picky, but they don't care. There's absolutely no pressure. They're phenomenal at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. Why waste precious time when they have every potential vehicle on the lot? I mean, I could go pick up one today once I make up my mind, but Caleb knows I've had a lot going on. Whether it's partnering with local businesses or sending someone home with our first car, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln loves to be a part of special moments in Tennessee, throughout Tennessee. Excuse me. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln views it as an honor to serve their neighbors, and they're committed to providing exceptional customer service. And I can tell you firsthand, that's the case. The exclusive vehicle provider and studio sponsor of Off the Hook Sports. They also have the Quick Lane afternoon walk-in at either of their convenient locations. Parts department is open to the do-it-yourselfers and business customers as well. All right, Caleb, your thoughts on the Lady Vols with a win. And I was completely lukewarm. I didn't know what to think about the Kim Caldwell hire, but I feel like every time I see her coach or hear her talk, I like her a little bit more.
I'm the same way. And she, once again, did what she does yesterday. They didn't get everything they wanted out of it because they only forced 20 turnovers yesterday to beat Mississippi State. They're not happy unless they're forcing 30. So, but they had 9 steals, but they were very good from 3. They were 12 of 26. Jewel Spear was 4 of 6 from 3. She continues her red hot shooting streak. But also Samara Spencer was 4 of 7 from 3, and Ruby Whitehorn was 2 of 5 from 3. Whitehorn had 20 points. Spencer had 18, and Spear had 13. But also Talasia Cooper didn't hit any threes, but she had a double-double, 16 points and 10 rebounds. And Algeria Spearman, she had 7 points and 8 rebounds. And so, look, this team is, we just had Tony Jones on, and he talked about how if you want to run tempo, you got to have depth. And Caldwell sacrificed just a little bit of talent this year to have enough bodies to be able to constantly go 10, 11, 12 deep and just wreak havoc. And look, I'm telling you, this is the most fun. I mean, Dave, I might, this might be a very hot take right here, but like if Kim Caldwell gets the Lady Vols back to being a national title contending program, it could be the most fun women's basketball team to watch in like the history of the sport. They are so much fun to watch.
They are,
with the way they play.
They are. The comment on the message board was this: Kim Caldwell has this team locked in and bought in. I can see an Elite 8 in her first year. Her first recruiting class next year is ridiculous. So pull that up if you don't mind. The recruiting class moving forward. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't completely understand the calendar and how that works in basketball since I've covered football for so long. But this doesn't mean everything. But when she is in a press setting, she never blames players, does she?
Never.
Yeah. But she always calls.
Well, she will like vaguely. She will on a vague sense, but in a way that they should be blamed.
Yeah. So
she was asked about her team getting out rebounded last week. She's like, they got to want to rebound.
Okay, let me ask you this: if they are an Elite 8 program, that's an A+, right?
Yes, that's an absolute A+.
Okay, Sweet 16.
That's still an 8 this year. Yeah.
No, I agree, and I think they will make the Sweet 16. The question is, will they make the Elite 8?
And Dave, I want to break this down real quick because I don't think people are appreciating exactly what she's building right now, because right now the Lady Vols have the #1 ranked 247 composite recruiting class in the nation. They've got 4 247 Sports 5-stars right now. Okay, and then 1 4-star. They have Denia Prawls, their best player out of IMG Academy. But they also have Jada Civil, the Paldo twins, Mia and Maya, and Lauren Hurst, who's from Cleveland. They are, and by the way, that's a player at every single position that she's got too. They are loading up. This class is loaded. So Kim Caldwell is just getting started. And by the way, what did she say last week? She said, because we're saying when she gets her players, she's like, these are my players. These players here are my players too. And, I love a coach that says that, because one of the biggest losers mentalities, Dave, that I feel like coaches have is when they get to a program and they say, I'm just going to throw this year to the side because these aren't the players I wanted. And it doesn't matter. And I think maybe with all the coaches you've covered, when you do that, you're automatically setting yourself up for failure, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the fans start to resent it. What she's saying right now, you also lose your players if you say something like that in public. So no, that's not a bright statement.
not straight up say, but didn't Lane Kiffin somewhat make that mistake of kind of like really wanting to shove Fulmer's players to the side to make room for his players?
Yeah, but he would always publicly, you could tell he was uncomfortable saying it, but I think when he showed up, the talent level was much further down than he ever believed it would be. And but he would kind of say, I'm trying to find the way to phrase it. He would say, well, we got to get more of our guys in here. But, he wasn't comfortable with it. He was kind of being honest to a fault, which I appreciated.
Right. Better than what Jeremy Pruitt was doing. I don't know if you know Jeremy Pruitt, his first year was like, don't worry, guys, this is the worst team I'm going to have while I'm here. Like he just straight up said that publicly. And he said a lot of these guys aren't going to be starting next year. And I'm like, you can't say stuff like that because you really mess up the total culture of your program when you do that. And I'm like, I get it. Like when Nick Saban was at Alabama, yeah, he knew he wasn't going to be good his first year, trying to change the culture. But he was like, he was still treating every game that year like he would when they were winning championships, wouldn't he? He was still trying to win every game.
Right. You know what I like about the Caldwell hire is she certainly has a great respect for history. I know she doesn't have a direct tie to Pat Summitt, but I just don't ever sense her leaving. Now, like if the Oklahoma job opened up, I could see Josh Heupel making a move. I could see it. I don't think it would happen. Rick Barnes is going to retire one day. You've got Kim Caldwell for potentially the next 20 years if things go well.
Well, I mean, who if you're into coaching women's college basketball, who would ever leave Tennessee? Like that's like a premier job. But then on top of that, you're right. Kim Caldwell's from West Virginia. So she's kind of like she's staying in Appalachia. So, I mean, she probably feels at home still being in East Tennessee. And, that's not culturally that it can be very similar to West Virginia in a lot of ways. So she probably doesn't feel out of place at all there.
Yep. Adam says, I don't want to jinx it, but this could be a legendary story for Kim and the Lady Vols, first time mom and first year coach. Yeah, I think that, would garner some interest if she gives birth in the middle of the season. And that's the plan is my understanding. If she does that and makes a Final Four run, that's going to be a great story. That's going to get Tennessee an awful lot of play.
She got that contract from the University of Tennessee, and her husband's like, I got to secure this bag. I got to get that baby out now so I can secure the bag.
Nice. Yeah. I know.
Just like you notice,
kind of like how Omari Jefferson had his hip procedure at Alabama, and he told us that he was never going to stay there. He knew within 2 weeks, but he said, "Oh, let's go ahead and get the hip surgery." I actually did that once as well at a job that I was going to leave, so I knew what he was thinking.
I was thinking more along the lines of when Patrick Mahomes got his $500 million contract. That the next week was when Brittany got pregnant with their first child. I'm like, oh, she knew what she was doing. She was like, get the contract and then get me pregnant so I can secure the bag if anything goes wrong. Yep. That's how you play the game. That's how you play the game. Kudos to Kim Caldwell's husband. But I think she's doing. I think she. I think it's scary what she can do in a couple of years though, with this number one recruiting class coming in, because now she's got these athletes that can shoot, and that's dangerous. So, I mean, I think in 2 years Tennessee's going to be number one.
Oh, her baby's due January the 20th.
Oh wow! She coached this late in. I swear you're not supposed to travel like this in your last trimester, right?
You're right. I'll give you an example. The Ole Miss game one time that I went down and covered, my wife was 8 months pregnant, and we got home. We stayed at the casino, stayed up late. Everybody rubbed dice on her stomach for good luck because she was like 8.5 months pregnant. We got home and she didn't feel so well, so she went to the doctor. And she said, the doctor's like, what have you been up to? Said, well, I went to the Ole Miss game and we stayed at the casino. So it was kind of a long weekend. And the doctor said, are you an idiot? So, but I'm sure all the proper, I mean, she's got.
Y'all stayed in Tunica, right?
Yes. This goes back to the Jermod McCoy thing. There are plenty of medical personnel around if she suddenly gave birth on the sideline. Now, that'd be one hell of a story. Actually, I'm rooting for that. But there's plenty of medical personnel that can allow her to travel. No, but I do wonder how long she'll miss once they have the baby.
That's the real question. There is a recovery period that is kind of required. We'll have to see how that goes. Maybe she'll be back on the sideline in a week. What if she is?
The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Incredible selection, #1 volume dealer in East Tennessee, and the customer service can't be beat. Stay tuned. Coming up, we're going to have the stat of the day. Also, we're going to visit with Will West of the Sports Animal. This Title IX deal is a little bit goofy, and I think is going to affect teams more than you think, and why I think Peyton Lewis will actually be better than Dylan Sampson. Nico or Arch, if you could pick between the two, Mike Eckler and Willie Martinez, you have to decide whether you're keeping the two. So we've got a lot to get to. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Off the Hook Sports.
Well, Ted, looks like you're settling right into your new space.
Affirmative. Powered by the new Ford Lightning.
You know, that would be incredible for camping, tailgating. The options are unlimited. Why don't you take a little power for yourself, buddy?
Beep boop beep bop.
Get into this new 2024 Ford F-150 Power Boost for only $53,300, or get 0% for 72 months on a Ford F-150 Lightning. Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Presented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and tedrusselllincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Here we go. Welcome back to the program. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. I'm checking out the message board. A little bit of a debate going on about Nico. We're going to talk, would you take Nico or Arch if you could do anything all over again? Not that they could ever get Arch, but I just wonder if that would have been a better play, because there was a tie there. So we'll discuss that a little bit later in the program. By the way, what did Jamarcus Russell and I have in common?
Y'all are doing scissor up right now?
H to the E-L-L. Yeah, it's the only thing that keeps me from not coughing. So
True. Have you ever listened to the 3-6 UGK song, Sipping on Some Scissor?
No. And
That
I
came
hate
out in 99.
I hate the way it makes me feel and look. So, I mean, my eyes are bloodshot. I've got bags under my eyes. It just, all this medicine. And then when you go to the restroom, it's like, I don't know, it's like golden yellow because you got all these drugs in your system to try to help you. I sometimes wonder if just modern medicine is the best way to go or if I should have gone to a shaman.
Well, play Sipping on Some Scissor. Next time you have to take it, and it'll relax you. It'll get you the perfect amount of high. You'll want to chill. You might want to smoke a little weed with the scissor afterward. Just I'm just saying.
Other than the scissor, which I have to take so I don't hack it all the way through the show, I am, I'm clean, brother. I'm not going to do that. So you can smoke all the weed that's up there if you like.
DJ Paul actually says in that song, like, I'm not about the BS like weed. If I'm trying to get high, I'm trying to get high. Like some hard drugs. Yeah. So great message, but man, I love that song. And When the Smoke Clears, great album, 2003 6 Mafia. Listen to it.
It is time for What the H, and What the H is let's stir some things up a little bit. I'm gonna be honest with you. What the H?
What the H?
Wow, I never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Yes, Travis, I am an authority on urine, but I learned that from using the restroom in Tennessee's workout facilities. They've got signs up with different colors telling you if you're hydrated or not based off your urine color. I am clearly not, because I think mine glows in the dark with all the medication that I have going through my veins. I firmly believe that Peyton Lewis is going to be better than Dylan Sampson, who had a legendary season last year. Tell me I'm crazy, both on the message board or Caleb, you can do so, because, I tend to play the odds, and the odds are he's not going to be as good as a guy that just had one of the best seasons in Tennessee football history. So if I were to play the odds, which is usually what I do, there's no way. I just see Peyton Lewis, and I think there's a very, very special athlete there. And I don't think Tennessee fans have ever seen it. If I ask you, will Peyton Lewis be horrible, average, good, or all SEC, which would you choose?
Well, of those, I would choose all SEC. But that's not the standard you said.
Okay.
The standard you said was better than Dylan Sampson. All SEC is not that standard. That is SEC Player of the Year.
I think Peyton Lewis is more talented than Dylan Sampson. Am I right or wrong? I mean, it's a different skill set. Dylan has great vision. He's really good at putting his foot in the ground and making a decision and being determined to run once he has found his lane. I believe Peyton Lewis, if he has that, will be super special. But Dylan Sampson had that at a high level. Lewis is going to be more like Jamal Lewis. That's going to punish opposing defenses, and I would prefer to have the latter. If Dylan Sampson had another year, or you go with Peyton Lewis and you could only have one, I got to be honest with you, man, I'd go Peyton Lewis. And I know that sounds crazy. Steve says Lewis can be an All-American. I'm not ruling that out. I'm that high on him, and I don't want
that still wouldn't match Dylan Sampson yet. So let me say this. I'm somebody who's eating a lot of crow here. I thought Peyton Lewis was going to beat Dylan Sampson out for the starting job this past year, midway through the year. I was wrong, because there's another factor here. And look, effort does somewhat matter. And I'm not saying Peyton Lewis doesn't give effort, but you brought up Jamal Lewis. I don't think there's any question that Travis Henry was a more productive running back in college than Jamal Lewis, even though Jamal Lewis was a better running back.
Yes.
And that's because Travis Henry ran hard every single play, whereas Jamal Lewis did not. So, and with running backs, when you're thinking about the NFL a lot, you might protect yourself a little more. Dylan Sampson, whatever you want to say about him, Dave, he ran hard last year for Tennessee. Extremely hard.
And I'll say there were times that Peyton Lewis tiptoed a little bit, but I'm not questioning his effort. I think that was because that he was unsure where to go. He didn't know his reads at the snap. So
yes,
I don't think he's tentative.
I'll give you an example for a minute. Another a lesser like extreme one, because Jamal Lewis, Travis Henry, like you're talking about goats and goats, but like Arian Foster, Montario Hardesty. Arian Foster was a better running back, but Montario Hardesty ran harder, like a lot harder when he touched the ball than Arian Foster did. And so if you remember, Dave, during that time, everybody wanted Montario Hardesty on the field a lot more than Arian Foster. So with that in mind, I would say Dylan Sampson runs more like Montario Hardesty, but he's fast. I mean, he's got the Alvin Kamara speed. So I'm like, I can't sit there and say that Peyton Lewis is going to be better than a guy like Dylan Sampson, who has speed, who has agility. He doesn't have Peyton Lewis's power, but he runs so hard. I think he makes up for the lack of power that Peyton Lewis has the advantage over him for. And I think he's quicker.
Now, Unsung says Lewis wasn't healthy for the majority of the year, though. Now, take this from a player's mind. He told me he was completely released before the season. Now, that may be an optimistic viewpoint. Deshaun Bishop is the other guy that we haven't mentioned. So who will be Tennessee's leading rusher? Will it be Deshaun Bishop or will it be Peyton Lewis?
Oh, it's going to be Peyton Lewis. And I'm still high on Peyton Lewis like you, just not high of him being better than Dylan Sampson. But it's going to be Peyton Lewis, guys. I love Deshaun Bishop. He's got a ceiling. At the end of the day, Deshaun Bishop has a ceiling, and I think he's already hit that ceiling. And it's just he doesn't physically have the body to be better than what he's done, honestly. And I mean, it's sad to say.
Are you sure we're not going down the Travis Stevens route here?
Travis Stevens also had a ceiling. It's just Travis Stevens ran behind the most massive, best run blocking line in maybe Tennessee football history.
Well, I'll go on record from people I've talked to and what I've seen. I think Peyton Lewis will be the best running back Tennessee has had since Alvin Kamara.
But see, what are you talking about? Dylan Sampson's better than Alvin Kamara.
I think Peyton Lewis is going to be better than Dylan Sampson.
Well, okay, then you will just say he's going to be the best running back Tennessee's ever had. Because Dylan Sampson, to this point, is now the best running back Tennessee's ever had. He broke every record this past year.
Yeah, but they play extra games, and that's the only guy.
He broke those records in 11 games.
Okay, but they played Kent State and Chattanooga. I mean, let's be frank. I mean, the stats are the stats, but usually they like a stable of 2 or 3 running backs. They had a stable of basically 1 that played 80% and Deshaun Bishop who played 20%. I think that you're going to see Peyton Lewis carry the ball 70% and Bishop will be your changeup 30%. Regardless of who's the leading rusher, they need to do some creative stuff at that position, whether it's screen passes, end arounds, or I don't know, but there's some things that they could do that I think would help those players have success immensely. But we say all this, the interior of Tennessee's defensive line or offensive line was a huge strength last year. Probably won't be this year. So I'm not sure that Peyton Lewis will ever reach the numbers that Dylan Sampson will. But I'll tell you this, I think that he will be the better running back. What the H today brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
All right, Caleb, who will be the better running back long term? And I'm including the NFL. Is that Dylan Sampson or is that Peyton Lewis?
Well, when you throw that in, I would probably go Peyton Lewis. Peyton Lewis has a better NFL body, more of an NFL prototype running back. Although Dylan Sampson could be an Alvin Kamara in the NFL, so got to be careful with that. But I think Peyton Lewis could be like We're talking like potentially Saquon Barkley, right? So in that realm, you would say Peyton Lewis, but at the same time, but that's why I go into college, I'm still going Sampson, because again, Foster had a better NFL career than Hardesty. I think we all thought Hardesty was the better running back at Tennessee. I don't know how you thought about that, but Hardesty ran harder than Foster at Tennessee.
Overall, a more valuable teammate, but injuries certainly, and I think I've told you this before, injuries undermine his career. I remember asking him, how's your knee? And he goes, which one?
Right. No, I know that story, but I mean, in general too, though, Arian Foster, we all would have agreed, was a better back in general. It's just Montario Hardesty was a harder player. And the same with Travis Henry versus Jamal Lewis. I mean, you can go back through history. There are just players that ran harder than other players, and you kind of respect that to a certain degree. So maybe in the early 90s, didn't James Stewart run harder than Charlie Garner during that time?
Charlie Garner was a really hard runner.
Oh, he was? Okay.
Yeah. I thought he was a really hard runner. I thought he was the most talented of that group, frankly.
Well, I knew Garner was the most talented. But yeah, it's just kind of, I can't look past how hard Sampson ran, and I love those guys that run hard. And I never saw Hardesty. The reason I've always been a fan of Montario Hardesty, I never saw him go out of bounds. He always wanted the extra yard. It felt like.
Yep, agreed. All right, stat of the day is brought to you by our good friends at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Selection. Yeah, they got it. #1 volume dealer in East Tennessee. They've got that vehicle right there that you want. They'll take care of you. Customer service is just unbelievable, and they're so incredibly kind and awesome to work with. You have to check them out. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, and Andy White, who's going to join us a little bit later in the program, will make sure you get the car of your dreams, and he takes pride in you driving off the lot with the car of your dreams. East Tennessee's #1 volume dealer perfected the buying process, and I'll share pictures of my new Bronco when I settle. I overthink things, Caleb. It's my fault. All right. The stat of the day is what, Caleb?
Over the last 20 seasons, you're going to love this, just 2 SEC players have reached a total career of 1,000 points, 600 assists, and 200 steals. One was Texas A&M's Alex Caruso from 2012 to 2016. Zakai Ziegler has now joined that list.
Wow. Pretty strong stuff right there. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Title IX will apply to school payments to players. That means Tennessee is going to have to take some money away from football, as will other schools, and give it to their female counterparts. Why this is incredibly stupid. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, off the Hook Sports, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios on Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike, off the Hook Sports.
Hey Ted, it's time to save some cash to our New Year's Dash.
Savings is my prime directive. Let's see what you got, Nick.
Right now, you can save up to $10,000 on new Ford F-150s. Beat that, Ted.
Most impressive, but how about 0% for 72 months on Ford Lightning or Ford Mustang Mach-E?
Ted Russell Ford has huge savings on whatever you're looking for.
This checks out.
Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's repair.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
And here we go. Guess it was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb, for those that don't know, explain Title IX for those that might be a little uncertain of what it is.
So Title IX was it's very broad, but it's part of the Education Amendments of 1972. It builds on the Civil Rights Act to prohibit sex-based discrimination in any school or any other education program that receives funding from the federal government. Basically, that's very wide-ranging in what it covers. But theoretically, with Title IX, what that meant is that for something like sports, and it was meant for more like high schools, but it went to colleges too. If you have however many scholarships you give for men's sports, you have to give out for women's sports. And by the way, for the record, for those who don't know, quick history lesson, Tennessee was a very early embracer of Title IX. They fully embraced it. That's why the women's basketball program became what it was under Pat Summitt, was because Tennessee saw an opportunity to really embrace it in the 70s and thought it could be a really good driver for their athletics program as a whole. They were right. That was a very ahead of the curve move by them. And that's why Tennessee was a dominant women's basketball program for so long. I mean, no, not taking anything away from Pat Summitt. She was an amazing coach, but she couldn't have done what she did if she was at another school. She got a lot of help being at Tennessee, embracing Title IX the way it did. And so it has been very effective when applied right. It's also deeply flawed because this is a law that was passed in 1972, and no one has bothered to update it with the times. Okay, since Title IX was passed, you've had multiple Supreme Court cases involving the NCAA, from autonomy of TV rights for football games in the 80s to conference title games being allowed to, all the way up to obviously most notably NIL and antitrust laws that have been happening over the past 5 years with lawsuits. All of this throws Title IX into all of this was going to throw Title IX into chaos, because player payment, it was going to ask, how does that jive with Title IX? Now, just recently, the Department of Education has said that the new compromise in the most recent settlement with the NCAA, where power conferences, schools are agreeing to pay about $21 million directly to athletes via NIL deals, that violates Title IX if they don't disperse that money evenly across men's and women's sports.
Okay, so here's what has to happen. We've got to have some sort of salary cap. And I can tell you for a fact that the Lady Vols were incredibly miffed that the money wasn't coming in like it was for the guys. It was a real issue. They were angry about it. And I'm not even talking about this year under Kim Caldwell. But I think actually this helps Tennessee, who has a brand. So if they have to throw more money at the women's basketball program, then they're more successful. Then you get more exposure in the women's NCAA tournament. So I actually think this could be a good thing for Tennessee. Is it a good thing for other schools that haven't taken pride in the women's game? Probably not. It may raise those programs up, but we know that doesn't happen overnight. I think this is good for Tennessee or fine for Tennessee. I don't like anybody telling me how to spend my money, to be real honest with you. I don't like paying taxes. Who does? But I think this could actually be a positive for the Vols.
Here's my issue. This is an abusive ruling. This is abusive Title IX. By the way, they're also now going to start looking at how, and later down in this article, I'm looking at it on ESPN right now. The memo is not clear on guidance on how payments from booster collectives closely associated with schools are impacted by Title IX. It states the department does not consider third party and an NIL deal as athletic financial assistance unless the school helps you secure that NIL deal. So, Dave, this is crazy because, like, if a school's helping an athlete, a football player, secure a big NIL deal, they're in violation of Title IX if they don't go help a women's basketball player or a softball player secure the same type of NIL deal. That's impossible. There's no way they can do that. Here's where this goes way too far. I think you and I both agree. The concept of Title IX, let's provide scholarships equally across sports, is great for schools. It's great for athletes, right? That's okay, isn't it? Actually making a profit, that's taking it way too far. And I'm going to bring up something because this is to protect what they may see as one vulnerable group. They're hurting another vulnerable group because they're doing this to try to help and protect women's sports. They're not protect it. I take that back, to help to make sure women's sports benefit equally because they want to stand for women's rights. Well, guess what? In the process of doing this, Dave, let's be honest on this real quick. The non-revenue generating sports, the percentage of players from privileged backgrounds in those sports is much higher than in the revenue generating sports. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Think about what they're doing here with this ruling. They're literally saying football players and basketball players who come from underprivileged backgrounds have to have money taken from them to be given to people who play water polo who come from probably really privileged backgrounds. It's actually a redistribution of wealth from the lower class and poor to the wealthy, because guess what? It's usually rich kids who are playing water polo or lacrosse or whatever sport you want to name. And the NCAA is stepping in, not the NCAA, excuse me, the Department of Education is saying a kid from, I don't know, a kid on Tennessee from inner city Atlanta or inner city Memphis that, like, this is his ticket out to, like, help his family. They're going to take money he could earn from NIL and give it to a softball player who comes from a family making millions. That's what they're doing with this.
Let's do this. We like to get Will West from the Sports Animal, his thoughts on such things. And we're having him on to discuss other things, but he's here and I want to go ahead and bring him on. Will, what are your thoughts on the ruling today that you have to spread out your NIL money that adheres to Title IX guidelines? That to me seems like it's one big mess, and I understand why they're doing it. But at the end of the day, you know as well as I do, if you have Brew McCoy on your show as opposed to a Lady Vol, there's more worth there. So from a free market capitalist system, it's befuddling.
Yeah, I think the tough part here is that it becomes the tough part here is going to be that you're a nonprofit, and so that's going to be the argument the other way from the Department of Education. It's also, let's see what happens because the Trump administration could walk in and change that immediately. So I don't know that this is where we're going to land. It's just where we're starting, and I think it's also why no one has divulged what their plan's going to be as far as how they were going to distribute the money. I have said all along what I would do is my plan would be whatever percentage of revenue your sport brings in, that's how much revenue your sport gets. The big thing with this is the NIL payments outside of that and fair market value, and then there's a board that determines what's fair market value. what you're doing, I mean, it violates U.S. labor law, so we're not going to land with any of this where it is right now. So we're just all wasting our time about this. This has been the concern, though. The concern has been specifically about Title IX. I think the thought was that they were going to have to face lawsuits first. The belief from people I have spoken to in the higher education community and the college athletics community is that they would win those lawsuits, but you're looking at multiple lawsuits over a number of years, because I believe the number is $60,000 is what everybody's going to get. Quinn Ewers just got offered $8 million to transfer for 1 year. Like, Nico's not going to play on $60,000. That's not going to happen. And this is what they're trying to do with the House settlement is, well, this is the money that you get. We're capping it. You can't make any money outside of what NIL was necessarily meant for. The toothpaste isn't going back into the tube. So I don't know where this is going to land with the Department of Education, because a new administration takes over on Monday. So let's see where they go. So I'm not really going to be up in arms about this. I see both sides of it. I would look at it and say, whatever percentage of revenue your sport brings in, that's how much revenue you get. And what that means is you're going to suck at baseball. So that's what that means. And I would be okay with that. I would look at baseball went back to not being as good in SEC schools, or it just was more equal across SEC schools and Big 12 schools, ACC schools, at Big 10. I'd be fine with that, because baseball doesn't bring in revenue pretty much anywhere. So these are all the things that they have been trying to unwind for a while. It's why I believe nobody fired their coaches during this last cycle, is they didn't know how this money allocation situation was going to play out, and they didn't want to have to also be paying $25-30 million in buyouts on top of it. Look, we all know where it's going to land, right? Because we have every other sports league in America that shows us where it's going to land. It's going to land that football breaks off into its own thing and becomes a business. They get the players become employees. They get 45% of revenue, which is going to blow everything up, because if you look, there was one thing we did on our show last week. Lane Kiffin, because it was right after he was complaining about how much money players were making. Lane Kiffin makes 11% of Ole Miss's total football revenue. Mike Tomlin makes 0.016% of the Pittsburgh Steelers revenue. So it's that you have a broken system already, and now you're having to pay players on top of it. And now you're going to have to split this up with Title IX, as well as they're calling it an education-related expense. I don't know how well that's going to stand up in court, but look at both ways, right? If you don't pay female athletes, they're going to sue you saying, this is a nonprofit. You have to spread this out equally. You're going to get sued there. If you're a big-time college football player, you're Arch Manning, and someone says, hey, Arch, we have to split all the money equally to everyone else. This is how much revenue you're bringing in. Instead of $3 million a year, you're getting $60,000 a year. You're going to get sued by Arch Manning saying, wait a minute, that's restraint of trade, right? So you can't cap how much money I make. I'm not an employee of yours. So either way, you're getting sued. And I think this is just step one of 2,000 steps, is that the Department of Education declared this now. It could change on Tuesday, but it's also not where it's going to land by the time we get to August.
Let me say this. Portions of the program brought to you by Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. HDKnoxville.com. We got to talk some football, Caleb. Hurry up.
I was just going to say, how ironic is it, Will, that there is a law passed in 1890 and a law passed in 1972 are now coming into conflict with each other in 2025, because if you uphold one law, you violate the other. That's basically what's happening here.
No, it is. And I understand both arguments, right? And so it comes down to, this is why my plan would have been all along, the percentage of revenue you bring in is the percentage of revenue your sport gets, and then we'll allocate it however we need to allocate it from there. It's also why the whole House settlement and the NCAA's insistence of having some type of committee, because my gosh, do they love committees in college athletics? Having a committee that is going to decide whether the amount of money that Alabama's next quarterback gets paid by a booster is that fair market value for the work that they're performing. I mean, look, the whole thing's broken. No one but Nick Saban and Ryan Day have suggested a system that can work. And the one they did is, let's just follow the NFLPA's model, because we're going to land there either way. And they're right.
No, I agree. I think it's just a matter of time. Joe Newbert Collision Center for nearly 50 years. Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work. and fantastic customer service. Joe Newbert Collision.com. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Exclusively on the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports.
All right. Let's start with Tim Banks. Are you hot or cold over the fact that Tennessee is going to re-sign him? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Will Webb from the Sports Channel.
Definitely hot. It's Tim Banks was Tennessee was like top 10 in everything this year. Are there things that I didn't understand or disagreed with? Yes. And I think sometimes there is no Skip Bayless like people who cover college athletics. Like we put Skip Bayless to shame with the way that we overreact to a single situation. I didn't know why Tennessee ever went with a 3 down front. It literally never worked. The strength of your team was the defensive line. None of that made sense. So why did you go to it periodically? I don't know. So there are things you could point to and say, don't like that, Tim Banks. However, there's a reason Clemson and Penn State and Virginia Tech and all these other in Miami and all these other people were trying to get Tim Banks to take their job because he's super good at his job. There also is no one else that's on the market that can remotely give you what Tim Banks gave you. A lot of people listening right now or watching right now would say Gerard Mayo. Gerard Mayo's never coordinated a defense and called a defensive play in his career. So he was never the defensive coordinator. He was never the play caller with New England. So it doesn't mean he doesn't know football, but there's going to be a learning curve there. You keep the band together and you continue to grow things on the defensive side of the football. I think this is a very good move for Tennessee.
All right. Hot or cold, Mike Eckler.
Okay, as a special teams coach, hot. As a linebackers coach, why do I need 2 linebackers coaches for 2 players, right? You're on a 4-2. In what realm of existence do I need William Inge coaching one linebacker, Mike Eckler coaching another linebacker? None of that makes sense from an allocation of resources standpoint, but I think he does a very good job at special teams, so I'm hot on him sticking around in Knoxville.
Yeah, I get your point with the energy on that. Let's go to the last one though, Will, which is hot or cold. Who else has a contract up? Willie Martinez.
Hot. I thought that was the best coach unit Tennessee had this year was in the secondary. You had players on the defensive line. You had depth on the defensive line. That dude took guys. Look at Jermon McCoy. I was a big fan of his at Oregon State. I had a weird thing when Jonathan Smith's Oregon State defense watching them play 2 years ago. So I watched like 8 Oregon State games wire to wire just because of the effort they gave. So I was a big fan of his. So you had one guy who had played at a pretty high level, and the rest of those guys, and you made them an elite secondary last year. So I think tip of the cap to Willie Martinez. I also think this. Tennessee doesn't have dyed-in-the-wool recruiters on their roster right now as far as the coaching staff. They have a lot of coaches. They have a lot of guys that get along. They have a lot of culture guys. They don't have recruiters. Charlie Gardner does not recruit the way he used to. Or Charlie Gardner. Some of these other guys that used to recruit don't recruit like that anymore. Willie Martinez, from what I am told by a lot of people, is the literal only recruiter that Tennessee has on the coaching staff right now.
Okay, now, Tennessee, those are the guys that are on expiring contracts. We addressed those. But I want to address the offensive side of the ball, hot or cold, and it's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. There's your best.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I'm completely cold on Tennessee's offensive coaching staff, as cold as Arnold Schwarzenegger in that terrible Batman movie. I just don't know that there's a lot of different voices. It feels like there's a lot of guys that are I want to copy. I'm talking about Alec Abelin, Joey Halsley, maybe Kelsey Pope, that are kind of learning how to be coaches on the job. And I'm pretty cold on this offensive staff. You?
I think the staff as a whole, I'm pretty warm on. I would say trending towards hot. I think you need someone with some type of outside voice or with some type of outside experience. Yes. So you can't just keep promoting from within and get better. That's the one thing that I have a concern with. So I don't know that there's an individual coach that I'm like, that guy sucks. But they're probably. But I would look at it and say, because I don't blame the wide receivers coach for what's happened with the wide receivers. I think they've made they are no longer running to grass or to the open space. And I don't know why they're doing that, because this offense doesn't work otherwise. And they're doing these really long, drawn out, like they're almost running into traffic instead of attacking space. And none of that makes sense in this offense. So, but I think you need someone with an outside view who can say, what if we added this to it? What if we went from the pistol? There's one thing Jeff Lebby did at Ole Miss that Heupel never did. And part of that is him growing up in the system with his father-in-law Briles versus Heupel, seeing what Lebby knew from Briles and then moving into, and then taking that offense and making it go at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Which is, he ran a lot of crossing routes and he moved his wide receivers around. Heupel doesn't do that. So I think you need someone with some type of outside perspective that can add to the thing that you're doing, because otherwise you just stay in the same place and everybody else is going to grow. And that's what my concern is with Tennessee.
Interesting.
Well, sticking with staff for a minute, we talk about, I know you're hot on Martinez and Eckler, but I want to ask you a question on this. We just talked about Lane Kiffin taking up so much of Ole Miss's budget. I know technically what schools pay coaches isn't the same what they pay players, but indirectly all NIL funds are the same, because what they can pay is less money that they can pull from boosters, and we get the whole shebang. With that in mind, are any position coaches really worth increasing pay for right now, this day and age in college football, if that could potentially hurt you trying to, or is it better off spending that money to just buy another player?
I look, at some point in time, we saw this, David, you are a NASCAR guy. You've been a NASCAR guy. We saw in NASCAR, they were paying drivers $35-40 million per year, and it had to go down to $10 or $12 million because that's what the market could bear. And they had overpaid them too large of a percentage the drivers had. So the drivers were making. We're going to see that in college coaching as well. There isn't a COO of any corporation that can make 8 to 11% of what that organization's entire revenue for a calendar year is. You can't survive with that. So it will trickle down to the position coaches. The problem is, you probably can do hey, we're going to promote from within on a better budget than you can bringing somebody else in. You're probably going to have to overpay them to get them from where they are right now, especially if they have options. So, but I think your point makes a lot of sense, Caleb. But the one thing is, how many guys are ready right now, right? Like that's the other side. And also with what players are making right now, I don't know that $450,000 barely gets you a 4-star recruit these days, much less trying to get a good player.
What I'm hearing, I don't think that gets you a 4-star guy.
Well, last year was $350. I was told it was $450. That was like the going rate for a low 4-star guy. The elite guys were getting 5 to 6 last year, and I have not been told what that number was for this last cycle. But because I know Boo Carter made between 5 and 6 is what I was told, and everybody else was like, man, we all make the same money. We're making $350,000 a year, and then it went up this year. So it's I just don't know. I don't think position coaches are the place that you can save money necessarily to make that better. Coordinators, that's a different story. I think, but how many more players does that get you? Like if Tennessee decided, I'm not going to pay Tim Banks $1.8 million. I know that Tom Allen got $1.9 million to go to Clemson. I'm not going to pay him $1.8 million. He made $1.5 million last year. I'm going to go with a coordinator, only pay him $800,000. That means you get one good player. Like, how much better are you really going to be on one good player? Look, the Giants, look at Saquon Barkley this year. I'm a Giants fan. We had Saquon Barkley. He was just as good there as he is right now. The rest of the team was terrible, and we ended up going 2-15. So it's one player that I don't think, unless maybe even if it's a quarterback, doesn't change your roster that much. And I think that's the only value you could save when you come to assistant coaches.
All right, let's go bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank. Will, do you agree or disagree with this? If college football was more like the NFL, I would trade Nico Iamaleava for Arch Manning. Straight up, I think that Tennessee would be better off with Arch, and I don't think they'd have some of the off-field financial demands. I know that Archie Manning knows how to do that, but I just believe that I think at the end of the day, Manning is a better quarterback than Nico. You?
I think he has higher ceiling than Nico. I don't know that he's definitely was not as developed this season as Nico was. Nico was further ahead in the curve than Arch was. Part of that's Nico was getting the first team reps. Quinn Ewers was getting the first team reps for Texas. Arch is a better runner than Nico, probably has a better arm than Nico. There's a reason why he was the number 1 recruit. Nico was the number 3, right? So He's the better overall athlete. And so I think maybe you could be, but early on, you probably would still deal with growing pains. I said this about Nico on our show yesterday. Part of it's the Quinn Ewers thing. He did turn down, I think it was $6 million plus to transfer to either Michigan or Notre Dame. We don't know which one. And then it was going to make $1.3 million from another marketing agency. So he was going to, a total compensation would have been about $8 million next year if he would have stayed in college. And he said, I've made $6 million already in college. I don't want to blow my relationship with Texas. So I said yesterday, if Nico's parents were playing, how I would play this if I were them is, they have the apparel company they tried to get going. I would have had a brick and mortar apparel store over in Bearden where they have all the white lady stores. I would have had one of those set up already selling his apparel. I would have got, and I would already be talking to investors.
I actually heard this take. It was a pretty.
Yeah. I would have the investors already in line for a steakhouse, for Nico's Steakhouse. And I would stay here look, I don't think he's going next year. I don't think he's good enough to get drafted where him and his family, or I will say not him, where his family thinks he should get drafted. He's on ESPN. He's not a top 4 quarterback for next year, and he shouldn't be a top 4 quarterback based on the guys that have come back. So I think he has 2 more years. I don't think the family's going to be happy about that based on what I've seen. I've asked this question not just about Nico, but would Tennessee not have been better off letting Nico go if he wanted more money and then paying the kid from Appalachian State $1.5 million to come here? Would you win more games that way? Because he's clearly more developed than Nico is right now. You were handcuffed by Nico's how green he was this past year. I expect him to take another step this year, and we'll see where that goes. But I think Tennessee needs because Nico is the person they put in the forefront and front and center when it comes to their NIL, Inspire, and all of those things, and it got so much media coverage, how much money he was making. I think there's an optics thing that would not go well for Tennessee from an NIL perspective, and I wouldn't want to lose that. But I also think if we're just saying just Arch, Nico's ahead of Arch in development today. So it would be tough for me to believe that next year, one, I don't think Texas is taking that trade. Two, it would make it tough for me to believe that next year Arch is going to be better than Nico, but he could be.
All right, bank on it. I would take Arch Manning. You would take.
I would take Nico next year.
Okay. We'll get Caleb's thoughts. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial.
All right, Caleb, who would you take? Nico or Arch after what you saw last year?
I mean, I would take Arch, and I wouldn't have said that. Here's what I said going into last year, Will, funny enough. I said that Arch Manning was a better quarterback than Nico, but Nico playing in Josh Heupel's system would make him better in college than Arch. I'm changing that now because I think that Josh Heupel's system, look, you brought up Jeff Levy earlier. Let's put it all out there. Lincoln Riley was underachieved significantly last year. Jeff Levy had a really bad first year at Mississippi State. Josh Heupel's offense didn't look that invincible. They all come from the Briles, veer and shoot system. That system looks like it's getting figured out. So I don't think playing in that system is as special right now if you're Nico Iamaleava. And with that in mind, and Arch Manning playing in a pro-style offense under Steve Sarkisian, I would take Arch. And honestly, I think Arch is going to be better straight up next year. And I wouldn't even trade Nico for Arch, though. I'll say that because, well, maybe I would, but I don't think it matters. I think the problem right now is Josh Heupel's system is getting figured out, and he hasn't shown enough creativity to tweak it.
Oh, yeah, they've been rigid. And at the same time, they won. So they went to the playoff. They won. It's hard for me to critique them a ton, but I agree with you. I think they're way too rigid in what he runs. The if-then questions, if this, then this. Let's see if they learn their lesson, because we saw everybody in the college football playoff who said, this is what we do. We are this, and this is what we do. Get their backside handed to them versus people who set up an offense and defensive scheme based on the opponent that they play. Did Tennessee learn their lesson this year? And we'll see if they did, because I don't think you learn – if you're good at your job, I don't know that you learn that lesson until you get spanked. Tennessee got spanked. Let's see if they learn, and let's see if Josh Heupel adjusts some things. I agree with you. People are catching up to the veer and shoot, so you have to have wrinkles to it, right? That's why when Levy had players at Ole Miss, I loved all the levels and crossing stuff that Levy was able to add to it. This year, he didn't have a quarterback who could throw, but he added a lot of rushing aspects to it that I thought were really, really interesting. So let's see what these people add to what they have and evolved, because they're going to have to. Look, I have said this on your show. I've said this on my show. I've said this on the Pennington show on Sunday, every show I've been on. I don't understand when they're in that 3-safety shell against Tennessee, and Tennessee says, oh, well, we just have to run into coverage and we can't get splash plays. Just beat them down with tunnel screens and smoke screens and flare swing, do things like that, especially when you had Dylan Sampson, and get them out of it. Like, I don't understand why there's a rigidity to that system right now, because I think that's part of it. What system can you run that you don't ever have to evolve or adjust? It just always works. There isn't a system in sports that works that way. And for whatever reason, Tennessee has tried to act like that was the case with this Bryles veer and shoot thing. If the veer and shoot alone was going to get you there, then 500 high schools in Texas would be unstoppable, right? Because there's a million people that were running this for a long time. What Heupel did was add a tempo aspect to this and move the H-back around as lead blocker and give some eye candy to the linebackers and the safeties. That's the thing that Heupel and Levy did. So they took the veer and shoot, added something to it. So to me, you got to keep adding things to what you do, because the defense is going to make an adjustment. These guys are getting paid millions of dollars to make these adjustments, and Heupel's getting paid millions of dollars to make other adjustments, and they need to make those adjustments this year.
So, sorry, one thing I wanted to throw in too is let's point this out. We know we are familiar with both families, having covered Tennessee. I think we can both safely say that Arch Manning's family wouldn't be the same problem that Nico's family is. Can we put that out?
I would say that it depends on what you are. If you're in the way, I think Arch Manning's family can be a problem. The San Diego Chargers found out about that.
Well, that was smart. Archie Manning didn't want his kid going through what he went through in New Orleans.
Yeah, at a place that's a dumpster fire, and as long as Spanos was there, and then if that family was there running it, it was never going. And they had that GM specifically. They were never going to win at a high level. He was going to hold it culturally. He held them back. So culturally, I think they can step in the way of things. But as far as maximizing the money, here's the other side of it, right? Who among us out there, if we're looking at it saying, I can go somewhere and make a lot more money than I'm making right now? Who among us out there wouldn't say, I'm going to go? And other people doing this at my level, and some of them that aren't as developed as me at what I do, are making a lot more money than I am. There's most people watching right now would do the same thing that Nico's family did. Now, again, I am told by a half dozen people Nico didn't want any part of that. It was all the dad. I think that the family complains a lot more than they probably should. And I think this is part of what you're dealing with NIL. I think Mike Matthews' family complained a lot more than they probably should. At the same time, if somebody else you're better than is making more money than you, it's going to bother you, right?
Yep. All right, great stuff, Will. Certainly appreciate it. How do we follow your work? On the Twitter at Will West WNML, and you're on 3 to 7 on the Sports Animal.
That's right.
You're a great man. Have a blessed weekend, and appreciate you more than you know.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Will. It's just absolutely so good. Last look brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun. I have some recruiting news that I confirmed this morning, so let's do that right now before we get to a very special guest.
The first step to better vision is to visit ccteyes.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun, and Eye Care Optical at CCTI.
I don't think this is a monster loss if Tennessee doesn't get him, because he's just a 3-star transfer prospect. But Kendrick Breedlove, the cornerback who started at Colorado, transferred to Purdue, then committed to the transfer portal to Arizona State, was supposed to visit Tennessee on Thursday. So with the Jermon McCoy injury, everybody got pretty excited about adding a cornerback, no matter his ranking. He did not make it. So I don't know if that completely closes the door, but we're pretty close to getting enrolled in class. So I would think Kendrick Breedlove would not be a ball. And for whatever reason, he wanted to stay out in Arizona State. So I just want to pass that along. I confirmed that this morning. There was a lot of talk about him being in town, but he was not. We are joined by a very, very special guest, and he is one of my faves in the Knoxville business community. It is Andy White of Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. And I'll tell you what, Andy, I just can't thank you enough for being a part of our program and the sponsor of the studio. We are certainly glad to have you on board.
Well, I'm very glad to be a part. Here, I'm really big into sports here in Knoxville, and especially University of Tennessee, and love everything about it. Every sport, all the time over there, and hear a lot of great things about you and Off the Hook. And I'm glad that we were able to make something happen and get a sponsorship role with you here. And nice to finally meet you, Caleb. So I look forward to meeting you in person one day. So thanks for having me.
Yep.
Thanks. Nice to meet you too, Andy.
Yeah.
Andy, if you just tell me, I know, but I want to hear it in your words, what sets Ted Russell apart from other dealerships that are out there?
Well, you have coach speak in sports. I guess you could have dealer speak in the car business, and you can say all the things that, customer service, price, all this kind of stuff. But really, we're community driven. I was born and raised here. My mom and my dad were born and raised here. My brother was born and raised here, of course, if I was. So we go back many, many, many generations that were all born here in Knoxville and lived here and raised our families. So, I have a real strong connection with the community, and I want to see the community succeed. So anything that we can do at any of our dealerships that, can help out the community, we always try to join in and help. So, if you're doing business with us, you're helping the community and you're helping us strengthen our community.
Absolutely. And I can tell you right now that Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, they are the largest volume dealers in East Tennessee, and the selection is absolutely incredible and great customer service. Your son is being patient with me. I can't decide if I want the full side Bronco or the sport Bronco. I text him. He's like, I thought you wanted the sport. I can't decide. And then I thought you wanted the full size. So, but they're just also, all of them are just awesome and beautiful vehicles. If you can, Andy, just I want to get your thoughts on Tennessee's football season last year, because I think there are a lot of people that changed their perception of the season too much because of the way it ended. I think that was a massively successful season.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of great things you can take out of this season. It just stings because it ended so badly, and that's the last thing we remember. We're human. That's what we go back to. But at the same time, we've got a lot of unanswered questions for next season, and to me, that's kind of the fun part of it. To keep up, if you're a fan, you keep up with that kind of stuff, and who's probably going to be in that P1 position, second team, third team by the time spring rolls around, and definitely by the fall. So, it should keep you a little more glued to all the news and, of course, Off the Hook.
Yeah.
So, the one thing is, last year everybody really questioned our secondary, and that secondary really impressed. Numbers wise and by the numbers. And, I just think that they've got a lot more that they have to concentrate on this season. We lost a lot of people. We lost a lot of people to transfer portal. The one thing that kind of gets me a little bit worried is we don't seem as active in the transfer portal. We may be waiting for the second round or whatever for those that were in bowl games and things of that nature, but that doesn't make us feel real good right now. So, if we could have gotten one or two, now I understand that I don't know the number, but I know we don't have a lot of numbers left to add players and scholarships and folks. So, I have all the trust in the world in Josh Heupel and his staff, and glad he's been able to keep them all together because if you really look at it, in the last 4 years, we've really had some, had some great coaching. We've been up there in the rankings. We've been down there in the rankings. So we know we can do it. We've been there rankings wise. So, we're just we're still searching for that 1951, 1998 deal,
That's right.
Yeah, Andy, it's I get your point with the transfer portal. I want to know your thoughts on this. Some of my thoughts are that Josh Heupel and the Tennessee program really values, to a certain level, retaining talent more than getting new talent, and a level of familiarity. And I mean, you deal with vehicles. I know that sometimes the maybe the less flashy vehicle is the better one to drive if you're more comfortable driving in it and you're more familiar with it, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it definitely is. Sometimes the one with less options is the best one for you. I guess from a personal standpoint, I would have liked to have seen us go out there and was a receiver from USC that we were really going after.
Zacharias Branch,
yeah. That would have been something that we really that really would have helped out the fan base. And I know Danny White and Josh Heupel aren't worried about. I mean, they're worried to a point of the fan base, but when it comes down to the nitty gritty, they're worried about making their team better. And the fan base will have to take a back seat when it comes to that. I still have all the confidence in the world. And if you don't have confidence in Danny White right now, then you need to jump off the train. Because if you look at how we're doing right now compared to every sport, at the Directors Cup for the third straight year, it's amazing. I went to a Lady Vols game for the first time in probably 20 years last night, because I was been enamored by watching them on TV and looking at their style of play, and in person it was even better than what I've been watching on TV. I really enjoyed myself at the Lady Vols game last night, as well as being able to go Wednesday night to the men's game. And thank goodness we got out of our shell, and hopefully it continues in the second half. So it's just a lot of fun over there right now, and I'm really looking forward to the baseball season.
Andy, have a blessed weekend. We are so excited to work with you, and I will see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're very blessed to be able to be a part. So I see one of your questions is Ted Russell involved in NIL deals? We are not. So
we're not.
We're staying out of that space for as long as we possibly can. So,
I was in it, and now I'm out of it. I'm good.
Yeah. Everybody I know that was in it is out of it now.
Yeah.
I just decided to never get in it. There's too much liability there.
Yeah, and it's like herding cats to get those guys on the podcast.
Yeah.
All right.
That's exactly right.
Andy, have a blessed weekend, buddy. We certainly do appreciate you.
You guys have a great weekend, and go Vols.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Incredible selection and fantastic customer service. We'll see you Monday. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook.